Fortnite fam, welcome back to the Reload Elite Series. We just watched game number 2, gone over to Acorn and Bolts in crazy fashion. Congrats to them. And we knew kind of coming into this, they were in last place. They were 20th place, but a Victory Royale suddenly changes everything. Let's take a look at the leaderboard. Let's see how high they climbed up the leaderboard right here, right now. That's right.
That's right. They jumped up 14 spots, going up into 6th place. And Acorn and Bolts now showing, because we do want to clarify, they don't have the crown next to their name. And I know that seems wild because it's Acorn and Bolts. Of course, they've already made it to land. No, they have not. So being able to get that Victory Royale, jumping them up to 6th place is definitely the momentum that they want. And honestly, Vivid, while looking back on my notes, one thing that actually stood out to me was Bolts and Acorn launching up into the air around zone 8. And then the place that they made after that, typically when we see these teams launch up into the air, they're kind of vying for high ground there, but they were just using that purely for observationals, and then they dropped down to low and kind of stuck there. They saw the chaos that was going for high ground, and Acorn, he's so smart and he's really quick with adapting, and I think that's actually what we got to see in that end game there. But speaking of watching some incredible plays, obviously Muzz and Sphinx, they do have the crown, but they also still want to be at the top of our leaderboard, so jumping up 5 placements after that game, pretty good, Vivid.
Yeah, are already qualified, but that prize pool is, of course, still up for grabs there. One thing that seemingly is not up for grabs, though, is the high ground right now. Peterbot and Pollo back-to-back games returning to what just seems synonymous with their names at this point, right? Them and the high ground. Obviously, it's going to be a rinse and repeat in terms of, you know, their approach to that. They did luck out. They did pick up another cube rifle here in game number 2. Unfortunately for them, though, a little bit lackluster in the category of finding those refreshes. As you can see right there, when we were actually in like top 6, top 5, whenever we were kind of tuning into them, it was 0 builds available. And yeah, they were able to kind of, you know, leech off of the rest of the lobbies, kind of run around on the cones on top and clutch up that 2nd place. But if they were kind of just playing a little bit more to pick up some of those refreshes, they would have had the builds to potentially go ahead and win back-to-back games there. But who's going to complain about a 1st place and a 2nd place when you have established a 42-point lead at the top of the leaderboard?
Disgusting, just like the fact that Kale left me hanging. Let's take a look though. Shadow and Virgo, 2nd place, Vivid. This is big for the duo, right? I mean, we're looking to make sure we can end the day in top 2, and what's really interesting as well, the teams that have already qualified are all in that top 10. So I feel like, dude, the pieces are here, right? For Shadow and Virgo, this is looking really good.
Yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing. It's kind of funny looking at their match history because we kind of speak about, of course, we're playing 8 games today. You need to be consistent over all 8 games. We've only played 2 games, so, you know, small sample size. But both games for Shadow and Virgo, 4th place with 3 eliminations. Like, it's been the exact same performance, but that is good enough right now to be in 2nd place and pretty comfortably.
Yeah, going to be looking to make some changes, obviously, though. I think that they're looking for that win. However, they definitely don't seem to be looking at high ground at all. It seems to be sticking to the low and mid ground. So might just be looking for that right opportunity to kind of control, get those good refreshes, and then wait for the final 2v2 moment to get that VR.
Oh my gosh. Well, look, again, it's fine. It's just the first 2 games right now. Everything, Zeke, everything is fine. Sorry, I'm talking to the Fortnite fan, not myself. Everything's fine, Fortnite fam. We still have 6 more games, so why don't we jump back into the action? Game number 3 is ready, so casters, over to you.
It is too early, Zeke. It's too early to panic. There's only been 2 games. You can start panicking maybe at game 5 if your teams aren't as high up on the leaderboard as you thought. But again, Peterbot and Pollo's domination over these 2 games just really disrupting the entire leaderboard. They got their spot secured. They're stealing points away.
I felt like I was watching a lobby just hiding in sheer terror because of the fact that they were having to contend with Peterbot and Pollo on height. And if it wasn't Pollo with the cube rifle, it was Pete with that exotic Eradicator OXR rifle. I mean, it's just devastating pressure. There's not really a whole lot of options left other than to try and be out of sight, out of mind. But for right now, these teams definitely trying to stamp their own mark in the lobby because they want to make sure that they're approaching that top end of the leaderboard. And here in game 3 could be their best shot.
Got Shadow and Virgo coming into this game 2nd place, 98 points. Aoxy and JoJo at 92 points. And I know they talked about all the teams that have already qualified. So you look down in 6th place to Acorn and Bolts, the next team on that list, just outside of the bubble at 78 points. There is a little bit of a gap that is starting to spread. So you're looking at teams like Acorn and Bolts. You're looking at teams like Ages of Ritual, even Noxie and Veer to remain consistent, because this is a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Teams just looking to try and outlast each other, but at the same time, Jacob, it's hard for the lobbies to not start to wear on you. That's where individual player experience can really start to shine here. As Cooper, right now, rocking up the solo lifestyle, waiting for Reek to get booted, and sure enough, he'll be brought back into the action. This is where teams usually start to explore a bit, but Rapid, hoping that he can just escape. Does have pizza slices to bring his HP back up to a healthy level. Still, Havoc certainly trying to take out Rapid if he can. He's already got 1 elimination, and Rapid more than happy. Keep trying to get a little fraggy with it. He wants another onto Havoc. Whether or not he can find it, that's still up in the air, but there's the closing shots, and Rapid will be able to connect. Another solid elimination here. What I was about to mention, Jacob, is the fact that teams might start to send off a solo player, right, to other drops, try and mix things up a bit, see whether they can find an elimination or two. And if you get eliminated in the process, you don't really lose too much along the way, because you just go right back to the safety of your original drop.
Yeah, especially since, you know, it is 4 points per elimination, and we've seen, you know, Cold Rapid, prime example of just not really winning games, even though they are consistently into the top 10, into the top 5. But it's more so their eliminations that is building them a gap between them and everybody else. Muzz and Sphinx, we saw 2 games of not uncontested, but, you know, splitting it. They're not really taking each other out or fighting early on. Muzz and Sphinx, I'm not sure if it's a play because of where they're at on the leaderboard, or maybe they just don't want to mess with Acorn and Bolts on their drop anymore. They do take the fight to them and start off with elimination, and now here goes Rapid again. We've already seen him going from spot to spot to spot trying to get these eliminations, and now he's just hunting down freshly rebooted players out of the sky.
It's crazy to think, though, Rapid and Muzz with the same sort of mentality, both just trying to chase down Bolts, and this is where you enter a vicious cycle if you are in Bolts' shoes here, because all he's trying to do, Jacob, is just make it back. Be a participant, but the lobby, brutal as ever, refusing to give him any sort of slack here. Jojo now going to be the next member up. It's like we're watching a bunch of different players just heading up the bat, and poor Bolts, they are just non-stop hitting home runs on this guy. It's an unfortunate circumstance. Yeah.
Bet you Ali is watching this somewhere, smiling ear to ear. Finally, somebody else knows how it feels. But 3 straight eliminations, Bolts just really not having the game that he'd hope, or at least the start of it. Hobby did pick up a couple eliminations, but you see a Minish freshly rebooted out of the sky. Hobby knows I can't necessarily be a hero here, but he still figures out how to make the play. He gets a good amount of damage onto Reed, forces the fall down right into a box to where he can try to play aggressive. Reed's taking some time to heal up, and that's time that Hobby's going to use to try to get in the box. More damage being fired off, but finally, to help Gum catches up, Cooper is there to try to save the day.
Oh, but Javi, he had Reed running there for a moment. A great backup play, though, from Cooper to assure Reed, prevent him from actually being eliminated and becoming one of those members that just gets so targeted off the reboots. But, man, Javi, looking, he was moving kind of different there for a second. He's been a name for himself, that's for sure. On the NA region. G-Money and Ishu, though, a little bit stuck north side currently. Craze and Kingling might be the next target.
Yeah, it seems like these guys have kind of been going head to head. G-Money's 1 elimination is on King or Craze. Don't really remember who on the feed, but you see that King and Craze were contesting Clicks and Higgs. Instead of fighting them out of the gate, they're going elsewhere for loot, but so are G-Money and Ishu, and that's why they're clashing each and every one of these games. So interesting if Craze and King choose to fight their actual POI this time around, or maybe they just take a different approach towards the outside. But Rapid getting that elimination onto a Minish. It's a Minish and Hobby just tagging each other in and out, in and out. It's your turn to survive. No, it's your turn to survive. And sometimes that's just the name of the game. And that's why I think we all kind of mention the mental composure that these players have to go through.
Cooper and Reet, though. Yet another little skirmish starting to unfold here between themselves, but I think better of it. They've already got 2 eliminations, and they want to reserve as much of their white heals as they can. Don't want to burn through everything unnecessarily. And this is where time to elimination also becomes a pretty big factor here, Jacob, because you don't want to be third-partied. The lobby starting to get a bit impatient with waiting just for those players that are rebooting nonstop. They also want to just see if they can tackle other duos that just get a little bit too distracted looking up into the sky, and then always got to make sure that you're aware of your surroundings because somebody might be lurking.
This is where we're getting to the stage of the game where those types of lurks can be really, really devastating, because even though reboots still need about 3 zones to turn off, we've already seen, you know, a Minish, Bolts, and so many others struggle to even touch down after initially getting eliminated and getting put on the cycle. Again, a Minish getting cleaned up by Rapid. That's 6 eliminations for Rapid and Cold, and now Hobby's there. Hobby needs to stay alive a certain amount of time here so that we can try to get a Minish back in the game. Hobby's just one more shot away from going down. He gets fully eliminated, wiped out of this game. Rapid and Cold, their fun has come to an end, but at least they got something to show for it.
They got 21 elimination points to show for it. Excuse me, my math might even be wrong on that one. That's a little bit of the NA side sticking out possibly, but still 7 eliminations, Jacob. That is
right.
A gross amount. Hey, look, it's been we've been going, you know, E to NA, a little bit of cube rifling in between, but Virgo, Shadow, one thing's for sure, they're in a pretty solid spot right now on the leaderboard, and they definitely want to try and maintain it. If not, keep sending themselves even further upwards. But catching up to Pete and Pollo is not going to be easy when they're already at 140 points.
And Shadow and Virgo is one of those teams that they can get aggressive. They can fight with the best of them, but they usually do try to take at least a little bit of a calculated approach to the game, you know, play towards the zone, get their surge, and kind of build it up one step out another. And it's nice to see them stay within contention, so that way they don't have to make any desperate moves so far at any stage in this game. As we jump on board Ritual Agers, their 3rd elimination here, looking down, just trying to see what scraps of that loot they want to take with them to the next station of the game. We're on the 5th zone, and this is where you start to worry if you're one of those teams or players that do get eliminated. 2 more zones, they start to shut off, so even though you can get rebooted now, that zone is going to shrink smaller and smaller, so you might have nowhere else to go.
For Noxie and Beer, they're just waiting for the prime opportunity. So many duos just opting for these early storm-based positions. They know they can afford to do so, but at the same time, Jacob, you absorb too many ticks early on, might have to worry about it for the storm sickness after the fact. But Sphinx and Muzz are looking to see if they can shut down Bolts and Acorn. If anything, they're definitely going to keep this launch pad in their control. Rapid Cold, 8 eliminations now as a duo. These guys are on a rampage.
24 points now off straight eliminations, and they're right next to the zone. They're just going to keep this one going. Muzz, Sphinx towards the other side of the map against Acorn and Bolts. You kind of see they both, since they land at the same spot, they literally are playing for the same exact strategy. The Fizz with the launch pad towards the backside of the zone, and now they're kind of stuck in a standoff, Taco, because whoever goes first means you're likely going to get tagged up, and whoever goes second means you're likely going to be held out.
Oh, but Yamzo and Josh, they were kind of drawn towards that beacon in the sky of Habit, sending himself into the reboot cycle. And it actually causes for Cold and Rapid come to a little bit of a pause here. Maybe they even spotted out the fact that Ruins is under a lot of duress right now. The lobby kind of locking in on his position to make things a little bit difficult, but it might also be the 9th elimination there for Cold and Rapid. I have to just wait and see whether or not that actually comes to fruition. But Pete, Pollo, cube rifle in hand, they are locked in right now on Sonido and Wagers. And man, I think right now, if I'm Sunito and Wagers, this is like my worst nightmare. These guys have already gone through it today.
Yeah, they're just being held outside of the zone. They thought, hey, we're going to rotate it on the slower end. Let the zone open up. Hopefully won't be contested. And then not only run into Pete and Pollo, but you see Shadow and Virgo in there as well. Might be a little bit of a blessing, though, for Aoxy and JoJo. They get pushed by Shadow and Virgo, which means they're out of that line of sight from Peterbot and Pollo. As you see Bolts and Acorn, we asking questions about how they're going to get back into this game. Bolts, after being put in the rinse cycle for a good portion of the early game, is finally back into it and building that confidence back up.
Still ridiculous to think about how many heavy hitters on NA have yet to secure their LAN qualification, and they're all looking to try and hunt it here today. Would be nice to just confirm themselves, and then you can just play the next Reload Elite Series finals the way that, you know, maybe Muzz and Sphinx are kind of looking to try and take control of things. 3 eliminations, but they can take their time is the main point I'm trying to get at here, Jacob. They're not really under any sort of, you know, stress in the sense of, I need to make sure that I am in that top spot on the leaderboard for a LAN spot.
Yeah, it's just like stick to what's been working for us so far. Stick to the playbook. Obviously, Elite Stronghold's a much different map than the first 2 qualifiers, but they built a little bit of a strat that they can hold confidence to, and so far it is working out here early on. Zone pulling all the way on over towards the eastern side of the map so far. Clicks and Higgs waste no time using that shockwave, trying to be one of the first teams there just to get there on the edge and kind of give them choices, options to work with once it does pull on over. But Josh and Yamza, the really only option here is to try to go as quick as possible. They got one of the farthest pulls out of every team still left to rotate.
At least have those overdrive grenades to work with, but with Sunito and Wagers on the other side, where they're currently boxed, can make things a little bit more complicated, so they'll opt for the Flowberry Fizz option instead. Try and catapult themselves a little bit further and higher up overhead. Still a dangerous position to be in, though, because one more time, friendly reminder, duos that are just already boxed inside of the zone, if they look back and if one of them happens to have that cube rifle, be a devastating effect here as Yamzo nearly brought down, but just narrowly managing to avoid that detonation.
Yeah, quickly slides right past it. Didn't even notice that his light flashed right before his very eyes as they set their sights on to Cooper. That's only going to be a knock for now, but they see the pressure that Reet and Cooper are going through. Cube rifle explosions everywhere, spray coming from the other side, and a whole nother team knocking on that door. That means that's going to be an easy cleanup and no chance for Cooper to get back in the game. Reboots have officially turned off. So now he's going to be left as a solo.
Peterbot up 1 natin.
The only solo left in this game.
Seeing the wall.
Will he be
Peterbot
able
up.
to build up? Maybe the eliminations might be a little bit more appealing to go for, as opposed to just outright placement positions. Clicks and Higgs, though, headed for a frontside position. A little bit separated from where the rest of those frontside teams are currently boxed up, but looking back, fully aware of the fact that teams that are still on that mountain face starting to make their way in. Acorn getting beamed on the crossover, but he still managed to actually make it in. That's the important part. A lot of hustle, though, on display here as Josh and Yamzo. They're going to be on ultimate low, Pete and Pollo ultimate high, just waiting.
Yeah, we've literally seen this almost every single game out of Pete and Pollo, just using the Fizz, using that launch pad, so that way they get past the 8th zone, they get past the 9th zone, so they don't have to go through what every other team is. Players accidentally bursting into the boxes, maybe down on materials, need that elimination. And see, even though Clicks and Higgs shockwave from one side to the other, immediately they're forced to go down one of those layers because of a team right above, Muzz and Sphinx. They're not necessarily feeling the pressure here, but you see a Pre-Edit getting ready. They're ready to put that pressure down, and Rapid's the ones that could feel a world of pain, leaving Cold by himself. And now it's Cold and Reet. Only 2 duos, or solos I should say, left in this game.
But Cold, what's he going to be able to actually put together here as a solo, and an incredibly thin material count here? High ground starting to try and get a little bit more sorted out, but Agers and Ritual will take their time. Just holding down frontside position currently. Bolts, Acorn, same mentality, just looking back, trying to set up a Pre-Edit, making sure to open things up. Want to keep things moving forward here off the overdrive. Virgo, Shadow. No luck so far, but gonna drop down, make sure to connect. Still have a pretty good hold on height.
Just gotta be careful. I don't know where he was at, but I saw Pete floating down slowly out of that sky. Mud, Sphinx, they get sent right back to the lobby. Virtual EWC getting credit for those eliminations as Bolt's run come to an end here, leaving Acorn as a solo. And you can see he really only has 5 builds left. He's trying to stay near the body so that way he can get all of those siphon mats or as much of the material as possible. But he's actually gonna go for the revive. They have the pizzas. They have enough to get HP up for Bolt to put him into fighting shape, but they're on the backside of the zone without any builds. Bolt is gonna go down yet again. Acorn sliding around trying to land the elimination shot, but Wagers absolutely turns and burns them both down.
That was a disgusting little wiggle path coming out of Wagers here. Still, he loses Sunita along the way. Peterbot now gonna make his descent, but the build's just getting obliterated, and Pete forced to drop yet again. Still, he'll try to make his way back up towards height. He wants firm control of this high ground. He's got Pollo looking to back him up. A couple of pizza slices there too, but Kingling and Craze, they're gonna be the primary duo right now, looking to sort things out. And Pete, Pollo having to deal with cube rifles of despair and duos in general directly underneath them. They need to find some openings here, but first it's gonna be Shadow trying to see if he can take out Click. Still, pump shot, not gonna be enough for the overall knock. And he needs that siphon, he needs a refresh.
Yeah, he needs to stay alive here. Not even half of the placement points have set in just yet, and we know they were lacking in that elimination category, so you cannot go down. Craze is going to fall. Ozone gets taken out. Peterbot and Pollo again wreaking havoc on the lobby with that cube rifle from up above, but you see they have empty item slots, almost no way down safely. Oxy and Jojo floating through the bottom side of the map. Josh and Yamzo just one layer shorter. They find elimination onto Agers. Those materials, while it might not be plentiful, it's enough to keep them looking strong.
And the main thing is the more materials you have, the longer you can maybe try and evade those cube rifles, but the detonation just breaking all sorts of builds. Kingling has fallen. Wagers still keeping the ball rolling here. 6 eliminations is insanity as a solo, but Jojo, Aoxy, they might be the ones to shut him down. A duo, have they scouted out this solo lingering just up ahead? They're both gonna look to challenge him one at a time though, and that's gonna be Clicks and Higgs just picking up the aftermath. A really nice collapse there.
Yeah, use the solo as a distraction to clean up all 3 of those eliminations. Now we're down to our final 4. Lawrence is going to get cleaned up as well. All 3 teams stacked down below. One's going to be up above. That's Peterbot and Pollo. Clicks is trying to make a contest for it. He shockwaves up, tries to get damage, but he cannot get the chop, leaving Higgs by himself to go down. But Peterbot's going to fall. It's a worthwhile sacrifice, but Josh and Yamzo still left alive. They're the only duo, but I said that loosely. I might have cursed them because the Yamzo will go down next. It's all solos left alive. Peterbot up above. Josh going head-to-head down below, but he doesn't want to take the 1v1. He wants to take the high ground up against Pollo, forces him to interact with Clicks. Pollo gets that elimination. Now it's a 1v1. Josh versus Pollo. The superstar versus the future here for the game win, but Pollo lands a big shot, but Josh is that much bigger. They take the game out of their hands.
Look, Josh has already been here once so far today. Only this time he's going to make sure that he comes out on top. It's crazy that it was the exact same matchup to boot. Pete and Pollo, they find another second place finish, but Yamzo and Josh with the victory royale. That's going to be the exact kind of points that they need to surge up that leaderboard. And not only that, but plenty more action still to come. Right, Desk?
Why do we keep coming down to these 1v1 situations where I'm like, wait, no, wait, you know, like this so crazy. And I love that Jacob calls out like this king versus the future. That's such a crazy call, Jacob. You're such a legend. Man, Josh and Yamzo. And keep in mind, they already have a spot, right? They've already qualified. They're good to go, but they're just like, hey, listen, that's not good enough. We want to continue fighting. We want to continue to show, hey, when it comes to that final situation where we're on land, we're all together. If you're gonna try and contest us, it's gonna be a bad time for you. So I love seeing them come out like this. And again, to just be put in that solo situation, Kelly, man, props to Josh.
Well, for me, it was the taco called it out that this is the repeat that we got to see from game number one. Josh and Iamzo versus Peter and Pollo, one on high ground, one on low ground once again, and Josh was not going to allow that to happen. He missed the opportunity for the 1v2, but a 1v1 is a lot more doable. Josh taking down Pollo in the final moments and, you know, just solidifying their spot in LAN already, showing that, like you said, Zeke, they're here to show up and that they are here to take LAN by force.
Love the way this duo is playing right now. We've seen this before from Iamzo, right? Controlling the low gun. He does it in FNCS. He's going to be running it back here in Reload Elite Series, of course. Paired up with Josh, they're absolutely running through any duo that dares go down on the low gun, and they feel pretty safe from that cube rifle because, once again, like I said before, they're kind of protected by all the other teams in the lobby, and the team's looking good right now.
Man, the action has not stopped, but for now we do have to stop and take a short break. I know, but it's all good. When we come back, we'll have game number 4 on deck, and we'll take a look at some of the standings, the leaderboard, see how things are going for a lot of these duos who, again, are trying to end in the top 2. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you shortly. You know what they say, Fortnite fam. Hotter than hotter go! That's what Peterbot and Pollo are feeling right now. That's what Peterbot and Pollo are feeling right now because we are going to take a look at this leaderboard. And when I tell you this is disgusting, I can't think of a word that would better describe their performance right now. We're talking a first place, a second place, and eliminations, all to be at 202 points. What the heck is going on, Kelly Link? What is this placement?
Did we bring Grim Gate to the new map? I was not aware that we had medallions.
God,
No, Peter
that's
Bot and
dumb.
Pollo, you know, like I said, everyone likes to pretend
Kids
that they're
do.
washed. It's over. They're gonna split up. And
Kids
time
can still
again
see
is the
game,
Peter Bot and
but
Pollo show. Right now, the center
game
stage,
one
of
and
course,
game
is
two
on height
off.
as we continuously see Peter Bot and Pollo go there. And we know these two, they're not
Wait.
squares. No, they're cubes.
We have game
So,
eight
you
or
know,
same
going for
game.
the high ground and,
Oh, we
they're
still up.
doing a great job of it. They're doing a great job.
We still have.
Yes, they are. It was actually crazy. Blankety might have missed it. I definitely did initially watching it right there, but we saw clicks from his POV right there, kind of tried to make this little bit of a play towards the high ground, and somehow Higgs actually snuck his way up onto the high ground and took out Peterbot. So without that little bit of a play from Clicks and Higgs, this 2v1 could have potentially happened at the end there again onto Josh, but instead leaving it down to a 1v1. Josh is going ahead and able to pick that one up there. Speaking about one of our other teams, right? We kind of talked about both the teams that are already qualified up there in the top four. One of our teams that, you know, they've been doing good. They were consistent coming in this game with a couple of fourth places. They did slip up 11th place, Shadow and Virgo, which is why they did go down 2 placements right there. But as you can see, they are still in range to go ahead and qualify to the EWC. And Kelly, I think the thing that you like to see initially towards the start of this end game was the fact that, hey, look, they were trying to go ahead and maintain the high ground.
Yeah, and they were doing a great job with that. They were doing that around zone 9. But honestly, maintaining the high ground is only a part of it. Knowing when to drop it, when to let go, especially when it's like Peterbot and Pollo trying to steal it away from you. Well, that to me is even more important. And Shadow and Virgo attempted a great drop off there from high ground. Unfortunately, though, when you drop down to the middle ground, there's just so many other teams running around there. It's really just RNG if someone's able to jump in on your box, which unfortunately was the case for Shadow there.
It's all good though, right? Everything's good. They're right there on the line, but we just got to keep marching forward, right? We got to make sure we can just do everything we can. Game number 4 is ready for us. Let's jump back into the chaos. Casters, over to you.
Thank you guys so much. And Jacob, it is just so difficult for any teams to actually preserve the map material count because everybody has been kind of focusing on the fact that they are just surrounding themselves with trying to avoid the cube rifle focus. So they're hoping, okay, maybe if I hide in somebody else's builds, that'll help me, but no one has any materials. That's the real end game here. Pollo, they might be one of the healthiest teams because they keep controlling the high ground.
Yep, and then we can see if they can stay healthy, Taco, because game 4 is ready. Let's see Peterbot and Pollo ride the wave. This is where it starts to get interesting, though. Game 4, it's not necessarily the halfway point just yet, but this is where you start to teams put the pressure cookers on themselves and the rest of the lobby, because where you're at on the leaderboard, if you're, let's just say, you know, 15th through 20th, you may need to start getting active now. You cannot wait until the second half of the day. But if we're in, let's say, the top 7, top 8, where Clicks and Higgs are at, you just need to inch yourself closer and closer with each and every game.
It's just so difficult though, right? Especially once we're approaching this halfway point, but Peterbot, Pollo, they've had enough of it. They're starting to go on tour here already. Shadow, a victim, the first elimination. And for Peterbot and Pollo, Jacob, the further away that they pool, the more difficult it's going to become for any teams to actually play catch up. It's not about the land position. They've already got that. They just want the prize pool. And at this rate, they're certainly building up to take it uncontested.
Yeah, and there's teams like this where Peterbot's looking to get aggressive, not really let him stand too long after the reboot, even though he's sliding, gliding, causing a little bit more time to be extended here by Peterbot, but that's Shadow and Virgo that he's playing aggressive on. So he's literally, if they get them wiped out of the lobby or just make them have a rough start to their game, he's potentially putting them in a bad position and possibly fall out of the battle. There goes Shadow trying to make a play, and somehow Shadow lurks around the corner, takes down Peterbot, and that was a huge battle there for Shadow.
Are we gonna start calling this the Vaxity effect? You know, no hate whatsoever, obviously, to Big Betta, but Pete, what is going on today, man? A very uncharacteristic couple of moments so far today. Just some big misses. Still doesn't necessarily threaten their position just yet, Jacob. A little bit of a stumble doesn't mean that they can't catch themselves later on in this lobby. Cold and Rapid, on the other hand, they're trying to see whether or not they can even find their first set of eliminations. Definitely been getting pretty fraggy early on.
Yeah, I know Rapid's been trying, he just hasn't been able to find the success just yet. But one thing we know about Rapid, and some of the, honestly, these big name fraggers that go out and kind of employ that strategy, is just because they get taken down once doesn't mean they're going to slow down. Fresh off the reboot, you know they're going to go at it again as Reet and Cooper. You know, a couple of times to start the early game, because of the bus path, we have seen Reet go down, but we've also seen Reet look to get eliminations early. This time around, they're just trying to farm up, so that way if they do end up in an engagement, they have enough mats, they have enough resources, so they're not playing desperate.
Oh man, this was the problem though. Rapid wanted to get aggressive instead. 180'd Kim and Chimp with their first elimination in game 4. And now it's all about whether or not Rapid's gonna be able to avoid that spin cycle of the reboot. Aggression, so many teams just drawn towards those reboot signals. It's Cold looking to back up his duo. Willing to get up close and personal here. A man on a mission, realistically. Cold's had enough. Pretty vocal about it on socials last night even, Jacob, where, you know, Cold's sick of the, you know, the fraud watch, the fraud talk. He's ready to prove that there is a reason why he's one of the most feared players on this region.
Yeah, and you can kind of see it. He didn't necessarily push in right there to get the eliminations. He saw that was the team that was farming Rapid out of the sky. And before they put him in a blender once more, Rapid had Cold push on over, got some damage, which allowed Rapid to kind of get off the respawn safely and get a second chance back into this game. But deep into the storm, Shadow and Virgo still running into some speed bumps along the way. Not only the team they're fighting, but another team in the distance, third party, and just make it harder and harder for them to find early game eliminations.
There's just so many duos that are looking to try and make up for misplacements with some high elimination counts. Liam and Jace, they see Virgo Shadow trying to close the gap, get a little bit more aggressive up against G-Money and Ishu, but you always have to watch your back in these types of positions. You never want to be the duo that actually gets pinched, especially when you were the ones that were initially trying to kickstart the engagement in the first place.
King and Craze, different side of the map, but same kind of lurking potential. A lot of the times we did see them go towards the north. This time they kind of went towards the south from their original drop spot, just trying to take advantage of Sineto and Wagers, hopefully catching them off guard. But it does seem like they're kind of ready. They're building up over toward that mending machine. They're re-farming, so that way they don't really lose any material in terms of their count. But King and Craze, they're gonna get bored of waiting. It does look like they're inching closer to try to close down any escape opportunities. They're building in metal to try to add as much of the audio cues as possible, so that way they have a top-down approach.
I think Sunito and Wagers actually queued up for a horror game edition of Fortnite here today, Jacob. If it's not the cube rifle, it is this. Just lurk play after lurk play, and they always seem to be on the receiving end of it. Granted, hasn't really posed a huge threat just yet in game 4, but it could change at a moment's notice here. It's all up to Craze. It's been spotted out though, position given away. Hasn't been able to find the exchange he was hoping for, and that's actually going to be enough to discourage any further aggression, at least for right now. But Kingling, he's got somebody else at his sights. He sees Speed, he sees Pollo, and he is trying to send some shots their way. A little bit trapped on this Ascender here now. Kingling gonna feel confident here. He saw the shield get cracked, so he's willing to give chase, but Pollo able to escape at the last moment.
Yeah, the scary thing is, I'm not sure he realizes where his initial target was, the ones he knows they're weak. There was too many audio-visual footsteps down there, more than likely, at least 3. So he's gonna make that safe play. Launch pad out, get with your teammate, and get towards the zone, and this is going to give them an opportunity to look back, gather information, and figure out where those players are at. But this is why Peterbot and Pollo were even close by. Jace got freshly rebooted again, and it's Peterbot and Pollo that sent him right back on to that respawn timer.
All I'm saying is there's quite a few members in this lobby that maybe have developed new levels of empathy towards Allier from the Pro-Am event here, because it is such a vicious cycle when you get caught out in these reboots. But Cooper, Reet, they're looking to try and send Cam and Chimp packing. They're able to find the opening elimination. could be a lot of points for them. They're able to keep farming those reboots consistently, but they also just need this fight. They've invested a decent amount of their early game materials here, Jacob, and Reed nearly getting taken out here, but it's Cooper who's really got to be sent towards that high ground, just trying to get away. Needs a chance. Pop that slurp juice still. It's a lot more than what they bargained for initially.
Yeah, it looks like for a second there, Reed almost full boxed one of them. He was able to slip on out. And you can almost get a little bit of a sense of why they are disengaging. Look at the material count. Reed almost ran out in the middle of that fight. Cooper was weak, forced to use the slurp juice, so they probably bit off just a little bit more than they can chew in that situation. But instead of kind of choking and going down, they just disengage and kind of replay this one out. No storm surge in these lobbies, Taco, so it's a much different vibe. So you're not forced with your hand to try to make a play because you're 200, 300 below the damage threshold. That gives Cooper and Reed a little bit more freedom to disengage and decide what they want to do next.
I want to see what Bolts does with this mythic goldfish. That's going to be, I think, my only mission that I beg from the production team. If he gets an elimination or anything off of that mythic goldfish, I definitely want to see it in 4K. But for right now, checking in with Sphinx and Muzz, hanging out, kind of a center base position inside the zone. The clock is ticking, 102 points inside of this fourth lobby. But one more time, you just have to remember, Landqual team, a little bit more easygoing.
Kind of a different amount of pressure that they're playing with. It's almost self-pressure. You know, wanting to do well in these tournaments, not because you need a spot. EWC and JoJo Fishy, however, they are playing with that pressure, but they're the first team out of our 2 spots available at 131 points coming into this game. They've been playing pretty well. Not a single game outside of the top 6. They had a 3rd, a 5th, a 6th, and eliminations in every one of their games, with 3 in 2 different ones and a singular elimination in their 5th place game. Going to show that, hey, maybe consistency beats uber aggression in some cases, but you do need those eliminations there. G-Money and Ishu over towards hostile holds, rotating in from the north side of the map. G-Money luckily able to find that med kit, otherwise he would have had to use at least one of those slurp juices, but he has a couple extra nearby if Ishu needs them, so no real worries and no real kind of pressure being put on G-Money Ishu in the sense of timing.
Seems like this was a little bit of a pre-established plan for G-Money and Ishu, but Cold and Rapid, despite having that earlier delay, they've managed to recover quite nicely. And Cold, Rapid, just getting a good read on where the rest of the lobby is kind of sifting into. They'll have plenty of time to decide for where they want to head next, but get a little bit of a look back on what actually took place with Sphinx and Muzz. Nice elimination, and what do you know? It's on Pollo. That is a little bit devastating there for Pete and Pollo. And Pete actually going for the revive. He knows what's at stake here. They haven't placed outside of top 2 all day so far, Jacob, and they're not looking to change that anytime soon.
I don't know who that was in the distance, Taco, but they shot a cube rifle over in the direction of Muzz and Sphinx, and that's what forced them to back up and close that build. You almost want to let a team like Muzz and Sphinx get aggressive onto Pete and Pollo, because even though reboots aren't turned off, if Pollo would have went down, I'm not sure the likelihood of him touching ground after that reboot again. So they have just been blessed by somebody else in the lobby, as Josh and Iyamzo, 158 points so far. Reboots are going to be turning off here, and so they make it a priority to kind of put themselves much further away from the majority of the lobby.
Definitely the right decision, with how much pressure tends to get kind of sent more towards that center zone area, especially as teams are going to begin to try and embark on their next rotate into that 7th zone. EWC and JoJo Fishy fully aware of the fact that there is another team boxed over ahead of them. Whether or not they know that it's Ritual and Agers, though, that is another conversation entirely. But for Richie and Agers, holding strong, and it's just so hard because you open up edits, you already called it out, right? Teams are looking with the cube rifle, and if you keep that wall open just a moment too long, all of a sudden you lose like all of your HP with it.
Okay, I want to know, is this a second goldfish? or did he somehow get that from? But do we have 2 goldfish running around the lobby? I know what happened last time we saw Peterbot with a goldfish in hand, just kind of absolutely obliterating Kanata and Arc on their journey to their own qualification a few qualifiers ago. They're just going to take it step by step. They have no real intention of one-hopping this with a shockwave. They're going to go ahead and take it in multiple journeys, but they run into clicks and hit. Oh my god, the goldfish in play again. Oh, I might have foreshadowed it, but I didn't believe in it. Peterbot absolutely demolishes clicks, sending Higgs elsewhere. Pollo took most of that damage, but luckily Peterbot's able to deal with that pressure. But my, what are we witnessing, Taco, in today's games?
We're watching Clicks' face just be a magnet for that mythic goldfish. Peterbot, you just had to do it to him. And look at Bolts still rocking his mythic goldfish also. More the merrier, it would appear, but whether or not Bolts is going to have a similar level of success, we're just going to have to wait and see here. Plenty of teams in the surrounding area, though, as Cold and Rapid continue to manage to stay in a little bit of a more isolated position. Not committed towards high, not committed towards low, but waiting for their prime opportunity to strike.
And you see what Rapid had in his inventory. That wasn't a regular fizz. That was the exotic Slapberry fizz for both HP shield and that Slapberry effect. So for Cold and Rapid, it's definitely an added resource to their game plan here, but Jojo and EWC trying to make consistent, along with Shadow and Virgo. And Virgo has been going through it in this game so far, so glad to see them at least giving themselves a shot to try to continue to move forward in the zone. Zone 8, though, Taco, all 20 teams have at least one of their players still left alive, trying to fight for any bit of placements in this game as Josh and Iamzo take some damage going from point A to point B, but at least they get to the front side of zone where they were looking to hope.
But this is just so stacked. All 20 duos having at least one representative, Jacob, is ridiculous to think about. And knowing even more so that Pete and Pollo, they are just hand in hand with each other, looking to try and devastate teams that are sitting towards that low ground. Sphinx going to become a little bit more of a target here, but Tim and Muzz able to escape for right now. Jojo and EWC also looking back, trying to see if they can get wagers along the way. Instead, overdrive grenade just to get that little extra sense of mobility. Pete just breaking build after build with this mythic goldfish, and you have to imagine that he's seeking out that immediate pump for the final blow here. Still, a lot of pre-existing builds that they have to break through.
Yeah, see if they can make it back in safely, and even if they do, how healthy they would be as Jojo just takes a massive shot. Drop down to roughly 50 HP. Shadow gets an elimination, and that was a big elimination too onto Cooper, kind of taking down him and Reet, separating them, leaving Reet as a solo again, forced in that same situation. We saw clicks go down. Higgs trying to make this solo run happen. With only 9 builds left, he's almost in immediate danger, forced to try to get some sort of a refresh. But this is pandemonium here as eliminations from team to team to team. Bolts finds another one, and this is needed. Acorn and Bolts are the third team just outside of the bubble.
Just looking like a bit of a demolition derby right now. Cole building every which way, trying to break through with the pickaxe. Gonna get sent hacking off of somebody else's overdrive grenade even. And now Cole having to keep his head on a swivel, looking every which direction. He needs a refresh. He needs it now. Even check out Reet wrapping all the way around. Might have that slurp juice pop just to keep him relatively healthy here along the way. But Jojo, as a solo, won't be able to withstand the pressure. Virgo finds that elimination. Cold still managing to stay up and running, but this is a very difficult position here. Bolts finds another refresh, and that little bit of siphon material might make the difference.
Yeah, he's just kind of using it just like Pete to try to one-shot a lot of these builds and hope to get the one pump in for the damage. Iamzo trying to lurk around by himself. Trade shots back and forth, still alive, but not necessarily healthy. Ozone takes a big shot. Golden almost fell for the same trap, but Iamzo is just causing pain around the lobby and gets an elimination onto Virgo. And that's a big loss. EWC, Jojo, Shadow, Virgo, they're all eliminated. That means the top 2 is open for the taking.
Not only that, but Iamzo, he's looking to see whether or not he can catch up to Pete and Pollo in this instance. Muzz, Sphinx, on the other hand, having a couple of difficulties, but they have managed to take over semi-front side position here. Looking up, they know that Height has that cube rifle. Somebody is applying some decent pressure, and it's going to be Lawrence looking to try and bring down Sphinx and Muzz. All these wooden builds are just calling out, begging for Lawrence to send cube rifle shots their way.
Oh no, Quard goes down, probably try to get as much of the material as possible. You see they're almost fresh out, but it cost him his life. He goes down, leaving his teammate by himself. One of 2 solos left in this game, but for Muzz and Sphinx, they're still grabbing scraps down below. Even without builds, they're not getting desperate in this situation. Yamso neither. As a solo, he's looking up, looking down, trying to dodge all around, but he finds a safety net here underneath, barely escaping what certainly could have been his demise.
Look at Golden and Ozone, though. They've actually managed to overthrow High. Lawrence going to be stuffed down, and in fact, it's going to be Ozone that gets the finishing elimination there. Yamso, though, still just lurking around in this secondary high layer. He's managed to avoid all the damage that's taking place underneath. Tries to get his name into the mix here, but it's going to be Muzz with the response. Muzz and Sphinx versus Golden and Ozone. Who's going to bring this one home?
Golden Ozone need it. They started this game in 11th place. The splat. Oh no, Muzz and Sphinx with their spot already secured in the EWC finals. They steal that game away. Those are the moments you hope and pray never happen. But for Muzz and Sphinx, they got to be celebrating now because up that leaderboard they go.
Hey, prize pool is always nice, especially if Muzz and Sphinx can get the bulk end of it. But that's just one victory royale. We've still got so many lobbies left to go, and we've got the desk to break down everything that just took place.
Jacob, why did you say that, Jacob? The splat? Oh man, that really got me good. Muzz, Sphinx. Y'all know I'm a big fan of Muzz. I'm trying to collect myself, Kelly. That was just crazy to see on broadcast. That's
I feel like you are in a constant state of trying to collect yourself, but I'm collected right now. So we got Muzz and Sphinx, our winners for game number 4. Absolutely incredible. Honestly, watching them in the heats, this is what I expected them out of game number 1. But to do it in game number 4, Vivid, is still a great place to start.
Yeah, Muzz and Sphinx just have that. They have that composure, you know what I mean? Enough to go ahead and just carry them through this end game. And again, one of those teams that kind of finds themselves towards the low ground, right? Kind of safe from all the chaos that's going up on the high ground. Kind of surprising here, right? The way that this lobby kind of played out. No, at the end at least, the team without a cube rifle actually found themselves on the high ground up there. But yeah, Muzz and Sphinx, one of those teams already qualified to EWC LAN. Just playing so well, kind of proving once again why they are one of those qualified teams.
Love to see it from the duo, and love to just think about them on LAN, you know, getting to hear from them directly, talk to them directly. You know, Sphinx is such a character. Anytime we've had interviews with him, you just know that guy's gonna make everybody laugh. But congratulations again to the duo. For now, we do have to go to a break. We are now at the halfway point of the